Director Kimberly Chito of the U.S. Secret Service has resigned after his office failed to protect the former President Donald Trump at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania. This resignation came after she could not defend herself in the U.S. Congress hearing on the attempted assassination of Trump. In the hearing, Director Kimberly, taking full responsibility, faced intense questioning about the agency's preparedness, threat assessments, and response to the shooter who used an AR-15 rifle from a nearby roof. Despite acknowledging the bravery of the Secret Service agents, Director Kimberly was criticized for the agents' failure to prevent the incident and for broader issues related to gun control and political violence. This video will shed more light on this issue. Welcome back to the Fraud News channel. I'm your host, Boss Robert. Thank you to those who have already subscribed. And those who haven't, please show your brother some love. Click the subscribe button, please. Today, we are going to delve into the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump and see whether there are any fraud issues into this matter. To give a context and a background to those who are not familiar with the incident, we shall watch the following video from WSJ. Take
a look at what happened.
It's the Secret Service's biggest crisis in decades. How did a 20-year-old gunman climb a rooftop with a rifle and fire shots at former President Donald Trump from less than 150 yards away?
Shooters down. Are we good to move?
This is a colossal failure for the Secret Service.
The Secret Service isn't just responsible for the safety and security of the protectee. They're also there for the safety and the security of the people that are showing up to these events. So this is tragic all around.
Here's what we know about the security gaps that led to the assassination attempt on Trump.
Yeah, look, there he is.
In a video taken by a bystander shortly before the shooting, the gunman, Thomas Matthew Crooks, could be seen crawling on a roof as people were heard pointing him out.
Dangerous people, criminals. We have criminals.
And a witness told the BBC,
The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle.
But those alerts, if heard by any officers, didn't seem to make it up the chain back to the command center.
That's a massive communication failure. When I was overseeing sites, we would have Secret Service agents right next to police with police radios. If there's something that's going on, boom, everybody knows instantly. Quite frankly, if the detail had known there was an armed person climbing up on a roof, they would have evacuated the president right away, no questions asked.
Beyond that, the Secret Service said it relied on local law enforcement to secure the building that Crooks climbed. Typically, Secret Service and local police operate together in concentric circles. Closest to the principal, in this case Trump, are teams of highly trained Secret Service agents. In the middle perimeter, there's usually a mix of Secret Service and local law enforcement who might cover portions of the motorcade and any pre-event screening. And in the outer perimeter, security largely falls on local law enforcement. In Butler, the building the shooter climbed was technically outside of the rally venue, and the Secret Service didn't sweep it.
It fell through the cracks, which still falls to the Secret Service because it means nobody checked to make sure the plan was in fact implemented correctly.
According to the Butler County Sheriff, right before the shooting, a local officer climbed onto the building and saw Crooks, but dropped to the ground when Crooks aimed his rifle at him. In an interview with ABC News, the Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle said local officials were inside the building when Crooks scaled it, but said,
"The buck stops with me. I am the director of the Secret Service."
There are also questions about why counter-sniper teams located behind Trump didn't take out the shooter earlier, even though they appeared to be facing in his direction.
Once the shooting started, they had rounds on target almost instantly. So that tells me that that shooter had come to their attention and they were in the decision loop.
The investigations into what went wrong will also focus heavily on what happened before the event even took place. The Butler rally was announced by the Trump campaign 10 days ahead of time, which experts say gave the Secret Service plenty of time to do site advance planning, and potentially even eliminate the line of sight from the building where the gunman was perched to Trump's stage.
In this situation, you actually had an event site that was being built. So they're there to find out what the dimensions are going to be, what the stage is going to look like, where it's going to be located. And then based on that information, they are then looking at potential threats, including areas of high ground, and how to best mitigate those threats with the overall security plan.
Former Secret Service agents say the buildings near Trump's stage in Butler would be a glaring risk and not something that could have been missed by advance agents.
We lost a president in 1963. How did it happen? Man up on a roof with a rifle. And guess what? The protocols that went into place from 1963 until this day is that we prioritize high places because we understand a man with a rifle, woman with a rifle, whoever with a rifle, if they have any level of expertise, they can kill a president very quickly.
One thing law enforcement experts say was done correctly, despite widespread criticism on social media, was the evacuation of the former president after he was shot.
The reaction from the shift inside that inner perimeter was very quick. And as it's happening, if you listen closely, you can hear the instructions to former President Trump to get down. And that is so that they can cover him effectively. That was done very well.
I got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes, sir. Hold on, your head is bloody.
What you can't hear is what's being said to the agents through the radios from the command post, maybe the counter sniper team, because there's other things going on. So they're going to do what they're told. And if they're told now it's safe to move, then that's what they're going to do.
Well, experts say it's not ideal from a security perspective that Trump stopped to pump his fist. The shift did a good job getting him to the car, known as the Spare. But the team near the Spare?
They were clearly confused. You could see it. You can't hide it. They didn't know what to do.
President Biden has been briefed about the assassination attempt and has pledged a quick probe led by the FBI.
I'm instructed that this investigation be thorough and swift, and the investigators will have every resource they need to get this done.
The House Oversight Committee is also investigating what went wrong and has called on Cheadle to testify.
The US public is attempting to understand what really happened on July 13th. No one seemed to have the answers. However, the US Congress had to subpoena Director Kimberly to explain what happened. This did not help at all. She evaded questions during the hearing, which suggests that she had something to hide. But she insisted that there was an ongoing FBI investigation on this issue, resulting in more questions than answers. If the right to remain silent was a person, she would be the one. The hearing was almost 5 hours long, but I managed to compile some extended highlights which I've reduced to about 30 minutes, which I shall share with you in a moment. After this highlight, I'll also show you Trump's opinion on the hearing proceedings. So hang in there and find out what Trump thought about Director Kimberly's responses. Let us watch the highlights of the hearing.
So did you deny a request for additional resources that had been made by the Trump campaign?
There were no assets denied for that event in Butler on the 13th.
I see. So you're saying there were requests made for additional assistance for other specific events rather than for the campaign as a whole. Is that right?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding.
Well, you seem to say that there were not additional resources requested for that event. And forgive me for being unfamiliar with this. Is it requested event by event, or is it requested just in general for the campaign?
So if I can explain the advance process, when an event or a venue is identified by, in this case, campaign staff, then the campaign staff works together with Secret Service agents who go out and conduct an advance. Generally, that is a 5-day time period where those discussions are had about what the perimeter is going to look like, what the size of the event is, what the venue is, and then from there, there is a request made to mitigate potential risk and threat. And I'm saying that on that day, the requests that were pushed forward were granted.
So the Secret Service did not know that the gunman actually had a weapon before President Trump was allowed to get up on the stage?
To the best of our knowledge and the facts that we have at this point, that is correct.
So can you answer this question, which I think is on the mind of most Americans thinking about this? How can a 20-year-old with his father's AR-15 assault weapon climb onto a roof with a direct 150-yard line of sight to the speaker's podium without the Secret Service or local police stopping him?
So again, sir, I will say we are 9 days out from this event, and I would like to know those answers as well, which is why we are going through these investigations to be able to determine that fully.
Okay, it's been reported that the shooter was not carrying a driver's license or any form of identification. They had no idea who he was, but then he was quickly identified, I think within 30 minutes, by using the serial number on the AR-15 under a tracing system that is now controversial. Some people say we should get rid of it. Some people want to keep it. But is that right, that the serial number was the key information which led to the identification of the shooter?
That is my understanding, sir, yes.
Okay. If an American citizen were just to stop you and say, Director Cheadle, we support your work to the tune of billions of dollars and thousands of employees, what went wrong? What would you say?
Again, knowing that we're 9 days out, I would say, as I have said from the very outset, I accept responsibility for this tragedy. We are going to look into how this happened, and we are going to take corrective action to ensure that it never happens again.
Well, I appreciate that, and I hope you will act with vigor and focus and intensity, and it seems you understand the gravity and solemnity of this to the American people. Millions and millions of Americans don't feel safe with all the AR-15s out there. We thought at least the President of the United States or a former President of the United States would be safe, but now that's not even clear. Mr. Chairman, I yield back to you.
Gentleman, years back. Protocol would indicate, and these are, the opinions of various former Secret Service agents, people who have done this work in the past, that over a minute of exposure on that podium with a shooter with a high-capacity weapon who had already wounded the president and could have got off, we don't know how many more rounds, and yet the president remained exposed, even though he was joined in that exposure by the Secret Service in their heroic acts. It just, I don't know if there's a good explanation for that.
Our personnel created a body bunker on top of the president,
I get that.
shielding him.
Yeah, this was an AR-15 style weapon that would have made pretty quick work if he was determined and able to do so. This is not the first investigation that we've had of the Secret Service during my time here on this committee, and the last one we had, our previous investigation determined that the Secret Service was experiencing a staffing crisis that poses perhaps the greatest threat to the agency, and that's a quote. Is that staffing crisis still in place? Is that still something that you deal with on a daily basis?
As of today, the Secret Service has just over 8,000 employees. We continue to hire, knowing that we need to ensure that we keep pace with
What would be the full complement of
and gentlemen, time's expired, but please answer the question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
What would be the full complement that you're looking for? You've got 8,000, and how many would be a full complement for the service?
So we are still striving towards a number of 9,500 employees approximately in order to be able to meet future and emerging needs.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your courtesy.
No, sir, not at this time. I am asking those questions.
So no employee has been disciplined, and no employee has been placed in any position that would place their job in jeopardy, nor their standing in the agency.
We are still in the process of
That's
interviewing
not what
people.
I asked. You're the person that runs the place. You're the person that knows right from wrong, good from bad. You've had a number of days, and now you come before this committee knowing you're going to be before us, and you've got to slough it off to someone else. Do you see where there was something that went wrong as a professional at an agency with 28 years, or do you have to count on someone else to give you the final report?
I see that something went wrong, and I've acknowledged that something went
Then
wrong.
what went wrong?
I
Was
need
the
to-
special agent in charge not doing their job? Was the shooter was the shooter given extra time? Was the sniper doing their job? I mean, these are things that people who've been around for 28 years can analyze quickly. I watched it live on TV, and then within minutes saw a number of facts and factors that would have and should have been known by people who were there. You've got 28 years. You're showing up here telling us and the American public, well, I've got to wait for the final answer. What is your evaluation?
I'm asking those same questions.
Well, no, you're before the
And I
committee. Tell us what went wrong. A special agent in charge, the person who was there. Tell us, and don't try and play a shell game with us. Do you have the ability to effectively, as the director of this agency, to understand what went wrong and at least tell us, I do or don't know what I'm doing? And we come away with, and I'm not asking for you to resign. I'm asking for you, if you've got this experience, then you should be able to say to us, we know what we did wrong. It was a failure in our system, and we're immediately making these corrections. That's why you're having a difficult time with this group of members of Congress, because we saw it too. We've seen the things, but you are the 28-year expert. You are the person that, and only you, that can make the changes. And I hear you say, well, I've got to wait for a final report before I, at 28 years experience. That is why we think what you're doing, the answers you're giving us are not correct, and you are not using your professional expertise. Mr. Chairman, I will allow her to respond.
I am asking those same questions, sir, and I assure you, when I have a full and complete report of exactly what happened, there will be accountability, and we will make changes.
Before I recognize the question, just out of curiosity, Director, it's been 9 days. Every American wants these questions answered. Do you have a ballpark estimate of when what Mr. Sessions asked you would be able to answer?
So I can tell
time-wise?
I can tell you on our mission assurance, internal investigation, we are targeting to have that completed within 60 days. There's also an external investigation that is going to be taking place. There are a number of Office of Inspector General investigations as well, and we are working in concert. And then, of course, there is the Department of Justice, FBI, criminal investigation.
Have you provided any and all memos to this committee that we've asked you on July 15th? Have you provided all memorandums within the Secret Service?
I would have to get back to you on
that. That is a no. You are being dishonest or lying. Like you're being dishonest here with this committee. These are important questions that the American people want answers to, and you're just dodging and talking around it in generalities. And we had to subpoena you to be here, and you won't even answer the questions. We have asked you repeatedly to answer our questions. This isn't hard. These are not hard questions. Have you provided us all communications from the Secret Service related to that day and that rally? Have you provided this committee? We've asked for this information on July 15th. Have you provided any of this information that this committee has asked of the Secret Service? Any of it?
I'll have to get back to you.
Have you even read this letter that we sent you? Did you even read this?
Yes.
Okay, and you have said you don't know, you have no idea. Well, the answer is no. We haven't gotten a single document or piece of information or data from you or your agency in related to the rally that we have asked you for. So, was this attempted assassination of Donald Trump a failure of training or execution or both?
I think that those are answers that we need to examine.
Training, execution, or both? Which one?
I think those are answers.
All right. How many Secret Service personnel have lost their jobs due to this colossal failure?
At this time, none.
How many Secret Service personnel have been required to take a refresher course on how not to let people shoot Donald Trump?
Our personnel are currently operational. We are examining the facts of this investigation, and we will make the changes necessary.
What time did law enforcement become aware that there was an individual on the roof with a clear line of sight to President Trump?
I am still verifying timelines.
Of course, 9 days in, you have no answers. How many minutes went by between the time law enforcement saw and took photos of Crooks and the shooting? How many minutes?
I am still verifying timelines.
57 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Huge disparity relative to risk. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Multiple whistleblowers and various media outlets have reported that the Pittsburgh field office of the Secret Service allocated 12 additional post standers to the First Lady's event and 3 additional post standers to the Trump rally. Is that correct?
There were no assets that were diverted from the First
No.
Lady's
This is a very simple question. I'm not asking if anyone was diverted. Did the First Lady's event that was relatively secure, especially compared to Trump's rally, get 12 assets? And did the First Lady's event get 12 assets and Trump's get 3 from the Pittsburgh field office? That's a yes or no question. If you don't know, don't answer it. I mean, if you don't know, don't
The number
answer
of
it.
personnel that were allocated to both of those events were comparable to the risk at both of those events.
Wow. Really? So you think that the Pittsburgh casino, 400-person in a ballroom with ingress, egress through probably a very well-guarded parking garage was 4 times more dangerous than a 20,000-person rally on an open field with the former president, future president? You think that that's 4 times more dangerous, the casino event?
I didn't say that at all.
Well, they got 4 times the resources from the Pittsburgh field office, who was likely in charge of the final walkthrough for both events. I mean, we've continually highlighted the failures of the Secret Service at the Trump rally. And, you know, you have the former and future president getting shot. You have multiple injuries, 1 fatality. And I would have to think that if we had 9 more post standards, 9 more individuals that have the training and the integration into the Secret Service defense of Trump at that rally, that I have a feeling that Crooks would have had somebody come say hello to him before he fired a bunch of shots. Do you think that's possibly true?
There were significantly more assets and resources available at the former president's event than there were at the First Lady's
Who made the
event.
decision to deploy 12 post standards to the casino where the First Lady was having a 400-person dinner, and only 3 people from the Pittsburgh field office to the 20,000-person plus Trump rally? Who made that decision?
There were additional Secret Service resources available at the former President Trump's event.
Who made the
day.
decision to deploy 12 to the First Lady's event and 3 to the Trump event?
The allocation of resources is decided based on the availability of personnel and their location and where they are, but there were sufficient resources
What did you just
that
say?
were given to
Did you just say there were sufficient resources? President Trump
event
got
that
shot.
day.
Someone got killed. There were not sufficient resources, clearly.
There was
and it
a gap.
doesn't take 27 years of experience to know that. And whoever made that decision, it probably wasn't you, needs to be fired. And then you need to resign because this is absolutely unacceptable and you've lost the trust of the American people. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes Ms. Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Cheadle, the shooter was set up on the roof of the AGR International building, as we know. Was the roof identified as a potential vulnerability days before the rally?
To my knowledge, yes, it was.
Were agents or officers inside the building? If so, what floor were they on?
We had local police officers inside the building.
The roof looks like it's a tin roof. How did no one inside that building hear someone moving on top of a metal roof?
I don't have the details of all of the interviews that have been conducted yet.
When will you have those?
I have been asking, and I want to have that information as soon as you do as
Okay,
well.
why did Secret Service fail to block the line of sight from that roof?
I think that the Secret Service put together a plan where they were counting that roof in as part of their overwatch, and that was the plan that they had put in place that day.
If you weren't going to put a security personnel on the roof, why not at least use drone technology or aerial surveillance to monitor the rally?
There are a number of times that we do use drone technology. I'm not speaking specifically to this event and what was utilized or not. There are times when drone technology is available and helpful at events, and there are times when it is not appropriate.
Do y'all use Signal? Do you personally use Signal to communicate with any official from the White House? Signal on your phone?
Oh, on occasion, I'm sure that there are people that use Signal, yes.
Okay. Do you use it to speak with the White House? Use Signal?
No, I do not.
Okay. When was Thomas Crooks first identified as a person of interest? Let me help you. At 5:10, he was spotted with a rangefinder at 5:51. And when did Secret Service notice him?
Again, I don't have those specific timelines, but it was a relatively short period of time.
Let me help you. 5:52. Ms. Cheadle, why was President Trump allowed on stage 10 minutes after the Secret Service spotted a suspicious individual? That seems to me to be the worst thing of all. Of all the breakdown in all this communication, all the BS you've been feeding us here today or not feeding us, that seems to be the question.
So as I've stated before, there are a number of events where suspicious people may be identified. That doesn't necessarily...
Ma'am, I submit to you, you got a guy who's going to be the next president of the United States. He's on stage. I've been to these events. We've all been to these events. A car backfires, and there's a 15-minute dadgum wait. That's not acceptable. Did the Secret Service tell President Trump they'd spotted a suspicious individual before he was shot?
I am unclear as to what the communication was with the former president at that time.
I'll take that as a no. Did y'all deny President Trump's request for more security, yes or no? And when was the most recent request for additional security?
The rally request for security, all of those requests were fulfilled.
And were there any personnel redirected to Jill Biden's rally?
No.
Who made the decision on the direction of agents at either one of those rallies?
I'm unclear as to your question on the direction of the agents.
I said, who directed those agents to be at Ms. Biden's rally or President Trump's rally? The specific agents.
So there is a methodology in which agents are available for assignments, and they are assigned based on either geographic location or logistics or flight.
Ma'am, I appreciate all that, but that methodology about got President Trump killed. Was the security detail guarding President Trump a temporary detail?
The personnel who are assigned to the former president's detail are assigned to him.
Why was there a different detail on the opening night of the convention than the detail that was guarding him in Pennsylvania?
The president has a very large permanent protective detail assigned to him. They work shift work, and so it could be that people you saw at the rally were not working the same shift the day that he was.
I can assure you, ma'am, somebody that's a lot shorter than the president was not at the convention, and the people that were cowering down behind the mass of agents that were on top of the president were not in the convention hall. At least I didn't see them. You can't seem to answer a single question about an ongoing investigation, ma'am, and you don't know when the information will be released publicly. Are you waiting for the administration to sign off?
No, I am waiting for the results of the investigation, at which time.
Okay. Let me ask you one more question. You found explosives in the shooter's possession. Is that correct?
The FBI found explosives.
Do we know who directed this young man how to make those explosives?
I believe that the FBI is still looking into that on their investigation.
Ms. Cheadle, you said that the buck stops with me, and I agree. I don't think you should resign. I think you should have been fired. Ma'am, you are a DEI horror story. I've told my daughter multiple times, my wife and my daughter, we talk to her all the time about how she's going to succeed in life. She'll succeed in life by achieving. Ma'am, you have not achieved today. You've let the American public down. If it was up to me, you'd be gone. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman.
On the other hand, the Secret Service has a leadership problem, and it falls on you. And although I appreciate your hollow words that the buck stops here, I was actually hoping for some answers. Director Cheadle, you must answer to the American people if you want to stay in charge. It's really, really simple. You want to keep your job, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. The best way to keep your job is to answer the questions, not play this shell game, not sing the Slim Shady song, wasn't me. I mean, come on. How long did you prepare for this hearing?
I've been preparing for this hearing over the weekend and into last week.
Okay, 5 days, 6 days?
As soon as I was notified.
And how long was that?
about this hearing.
Okay, 4 days?
I began preparing.
4 days, 3 days?
I'm not sure the date that I got the letter asking me to be here.
What are you sure of? Are you sure the color of your hair? Are you sure the color of your suit? I'm just, like, tell the American people, what are you sure of? You don't even know when you started preparing for the hearing? I mean, the biggest hearing of your life, and you have no clue? You can't remember when you started preparing for this hearing? Can you understand why those words seem hollow to the American people who are supposed to entrust their faith in you?
I assure you, the moment I received notification.
But you can't remember. You got a little Alzheimer's, dementia going? I mean, what, you can't remember.
I have several active investigations going on and an operational agency to run.
Okay. All right. But you want to take accountability, right? The buck stops with you, right?
I am taking accountability.
Super. Then let's start with trying to answer some questions. You keep referring to the FBI. When asked how many shell casings were on the roof, you referred to the FBI. When asked if there were explosives in the car, you referred to the FBI. When asked if Crooks was acting alone, you referred to the FBI. See a common theme here? I can go on and on. My question is, who at the FBI should I speak with? Wait for it. Wait for it.
The FBI is responsible for the criminal
Is there a name?
I'm not certain.
I'm not certain.
Who at
All
the
right, here we go.
FBI
I'm
is
not
running the
certain. I don't know. Let me ask a different question. Have you been in communication with the FBI?
Yes, I have.
With whom?
I speak with the director and the deputy director.
Okay. And what have they shared with you about this investigation? So I'll give you an opportunity to answer again. Did they share with you how many shell casings were on the roof?
They have shared with me the evidence.
Did they share with you how many shell casing were on the roof?
Yes.
Okay, how many were there?
I would refer to the FBI for their
How
investigation.
many were there?
And their information that they need to share in their investigation.
So they've shared the information with you. You just don't want to share the information with us, correct?
We have concurrent investigations that are going on.
So they have shared this information with you. You know the answer to the question. You just refuse to answer the question from the member of Congress who has subpoenaed you to be here. Is there a different answer to that question?
I was always willing to come here and testify before this oversight hearing.
Beautiful. Then let's do that. Let's for once have your actions match your words. So you've been in communication with the FBI. You know the answers, and you refuse to tell us the answers. So I will ask you again. You know how many shell casings were on that roof. What is the answer to that question?
I think it's pertinent.
What is the answer to that question?
I think it's pertinent to talk to you about the information that the Secret Service has and that the Secret Service knows related
I'm
to the
asking
events
you
on
an
that day.
answer to the question. If you're supposed to be in charge, if the buck stops with you, how come you can't share the answers? What are you covering up? What are you hiding, my friend?
I'm not covering anything up.
Then why can't you answer a simple question?
I would leave it to the criminal investigation to answer questions related to that.
When you talk to the FBI and you ask them how many explosives, well, let me ask you, did you ask them how many explosives were on the roof? Did they answer that question? Or in the car, excuse me. Did they answer that question for you?
Yes.
Yes. So you know the answer to that question that my colleagues have asked you. But again, you refuse to give us the answers. You're playing this wasn't me. Well, I submit to you, if you can't, and it's not a can't, it's a won't. It's not a can't. It's not a I don't know. It's a I choose not to answer the question. Well, let me tell you, Ms. Cheadle, if you're going to lead, you need to lead. If you want to be in charge, then answer the question or step aside and have someone with the courage and the guts to answer to the American people the questions that they deserve answers to. And with that, I yield back.
Literally the worst performance I have ever seen in front of a congressional hearing. You have offered no reason for this committee, this body, or the American people to trust you or the Secret Service today. And you should resign. You have said that you've put new security measures in place after the assassination attempt. Can you tell us what those are? Because the American people want to know that you're taking real corrective measures. But today you've pointed to an investigation. Investigation or not, you still have a job to do with a zero-fail mission. But so far, there's been absolutely no accountability, and you've admitted that here today. Not one person's been suspended. Not one person's been put on a desk. Meanwhile, we've got the most contentious of elections in our nation's history, and protectees are in danger because of incompetent leadership. Not the agents. The agents piled on President Trump to protect his life. Those are heroes. But the administrators running your agency, they're not right now. They're not doing their jobs. And you certainly aren't doing. The most appalling part of Saturday's events is the countless opportunities that Secret Service had to stop Crooks before he even got on the roof. At 3 o'clock, Crooks raised suspicion by entering the rally with a rangefinder. At 5:45, a cop with a Beaver County Emergency Services unit saw Crooks eyeballing the roof at the AGR International Building. And then at 5:55, Secret Service was warned of a suspicious person and identifies Crooks as a threat. This was all before shots were fired 15 minutes later. Director, yes or no, did local law enforcement alert the Secret Service about Crooks' presence at the rally?
Yes, they did.
The shooter came to attention of law enforcement almost an hour before President Trump went on stage. Law enforcement alerted the Secret Service of the shooter. Over and over, you've said there's a difference between a suspicious individual and a threatening individual. Can you explain what the shooter needed to exemplify to be called a threat?
So I'm not clear as to what identified him as suspicious to the individuals who originally clarified him that way. For the Secret Service, for an individual to be determined to be a threat, that individual would have to be seen with a weapon or capable of doing some sort of harm to our protectees.
I mean, Director, an individual walking into a rally with a rangefinder, scoping out an unprotected rooftop, and he reportedly flew a drone over hours before. It sounds like a lot more than suspicious, especially at a presidential rally. Your operational lapses, your resource management, and poor judgment nearly resulted in the assassination of President Trump. I mean, the dereliction of duty here is just appalling. The fact that you haven't visited Butler is just maddening to me. That you're not taking this job seriously. Many people here have called for your resignation. I've introduced a resolution here into this body that hopefully will get a vote this week calling on the president to fire you, ma'am. You have not done your job. You have put two black eyes on your agency, and you need to go. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Madam Director, how many press conferences have you held since the assassination attempt?
We have put out press releases.
How many press conferences have you held? Gone to the mic, taken questions from the public, from the media? How many?
I have not held any.
How many has Secretary Mayorkas held?
I don't.
0. How many has the FBI held? 0. How many has the Department of Justice held? I know you know the answer.
I believe there was a press conference in Butler after the incident occurred.
By local law enforcement, not by you and not by the Department of Homeland Security. So this is how misinformation flies. I mean, in the darkness, in the absence of information. Now we have 9 days later before a congressional committee, we all represent almost 1 million people, and you still don't have answers. Are you aware that national news anchors are saying this was a hoax? On national television, they're saying, no, the president wasn't shot, it was flying glass. Are you aware of that?
I have not heard those reports.
Are you aware that, there are rumors rampant online that there were multiple shooters?
Yes.
Are you aware that because the shooter had overseas encrypted platforms in Belgium and New Zealand and in Germany, that a lot of people are speculating there could have been foreign involvement, logically? Are you aware of that?
Yes.
And have you done anything to disabuse any of these notions today? No. You haven't. Madam Director, I would fire you. Regardless of the failure, I would fire you just how you've handled it since. You should have been the first to the mics to say, America, world, I want to assure you we're going to get to the bottom of this. I want to assure you full transparency. Our agency clearly had major gaps here, and I want to personally take responsibility and accountability. You should have been the first, standing alongside Secretary Mayorkas, and I would even go so far as to say have daily press conferences, updating everyone on what we know. But you haven't had any of that. What are you hiding behind?
I am not hiding.
Because you're making the situation worse. I think you've heard that on a bipartisan basis here. You are making this situation far worse in the absence of information. Let's move on. This is truly astounding. I want to be clear, because you keep dodging the issue. Has President Trump's permanent protective detail requested additional assets over the last few years? He is clearly not your average former president. He's not Jimmy Carter in an old folks' home. He's not President Bush painting out in his barn. He has multiple residences, a lot of rallies. He's very publicly engaged, and he has a foreign threat in addition to domestic threats. Have they requested additional resources?
That's the last question, but please feel free to answer.
Thank you,
Director.
Thank you. We have continued, as I stated earlier, to increase over the past year the assets that are at the former president's residence and supplied to his detail.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask for one more indulgence. It is clear you have not been to Butler, Pennsylvania. Leaders lead and should be on the ground. You have not been there. Instead, you went to the RNC, but you weren't originally even going to go there. Where were you originally scheduled to go besides the RNC, a national special security event?
I was always scheduled to go to the RNC.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to enter into the record that the director was scheduled to go to Aspen, hobnobbing around with, I don't know what liberal elites go to Aspen. That was where you were originally scheduled to go to speak at a forum.
I was scheduled to go to the RNC. I was going to leave the RNC for 24 hours and return back to the RNC.
I hope, as your predecessor, Julie Pearson, with a security incident on the White House and under the Obama administration and Reagan's Secret Service detail lead, I will hope you would have the dignity for the sake of the agents in the service to resign.
Gentleman's time.
I yield back to you.
Ranking member yields back. I'll deliver my closing remarks. Director Cheadle, I subpoenaed you to appear today to get answers for the American people about the failures that led to the assassination attempt of President Donald J. Trump. Unfortunately, you refused to answer today. And this committee is not known for its model of bipartisanship, but I think today we came together unanimously in our disappointment for your lack of answers. You've stated that the FBI will investigate and give a report, and you estimate 60 days. We've been waiting for months and months for lots of different bits of information from the FBI. We have no confidence in the FBI. The majority of this committee has no confidence in the FBI. I sincerely hoped that the hearing today would give not just Congress confidence in the Secret Service, but the American people would have confidence in the Secret Service. We don't have confidence, not just in Congress, but I don't believe the American people tonight when they go to bed are going to have confidence that the Secret Service is the best it can be at protecting President Biden, at protecting the First Lady, at protecting President Trump, at protecting their families. That's what the primary role for the Secret Service should be. And some people have said and speculated, well, there needs to be more money and more employees. As I stated early on, $3.1 billion, I believe next year it's going to be $3.2 billion budget, over 8,000 employees. If the Secret Service is spread too thin and doing things like inspecting counterfeit, which is what the Secret Service was created to do, was to inspect counterfeit money and things like that with the Treasury. If it's spread too thin, then we need to come together in Congress, and I think we can do that in a bipartisan way to narrow the focus of the Secret Service, to protect the leaders of our country, to protect our elections by protecting our candidates. And I don't believe we have any confidence that you can do that as the leader of the FBI. I sincerely hope that we would adjourn this committee hearing and have confidence, not just in the Secret Service, but in you as director of the Secret Service. But we do not. Taking responsibility requires a lot of things. It means providing transparency. It means answering simple questions. It means providing a specific timeline of July 13th to this committee and the American people. I mean, it's been 9 days. There were people that were demanding that we have a hearing the next day or 2 days following the shooting. And I said, no, we need to give the Secret Service ample time to be able to answer those questions. 9 days. 9 days. And I don't think we answered very many questions that the American people have. I don't think there was I've never said this before, and I've presided over a lot of hearings. I don't think there was one question asked by anyone that the average American hasn't already asked at a diner or at church or at a ball game. The American people have questions. They deserve answers. Congress deserves answers. You were subpoenaed today to provide answers, and ma'am, you did not do that. So, as Ranking Member Raskin stated, he and I will be sending a letter requesting that you submit your resignation as a step toward accountability in what happened. And one of the biggest frustrations that many of us have, especially on this side of the aisle, is that there's never accountability in this administration. And when you look at the debacles prior to July 13th, I mean, it would be hard to beat the withdrawal in Afghanistan, the debacle there, and no one was held accountable. To this day, no one has been held accountable for that. But here we have clearly video showing people notifying the police, and the police are blaming the Secret Service. The Secret Service are blaming the police. Homeland Security is blaming everybody. But at the end of the day, after this hearing and after our request for information, we don't have any answers for the American people, and we don't have that confidence that you can lead the Secret Service to restore the confidence. And again, I commend the Ranking Member for joining with me in the letter asking your resignation, and we certainly hope that you will take that to heart. With that and without objection, all members have 5 legislative days within which to submit materials and additional written questions for the witness, which will be forwarded to the witness. If there's no further business, without objection, the committee stands adjourned.
Let me know what you think about Director Kimberly's responses. Is she hiding something, or is she a victim of circumstances? Let us watch how Trump thought of this hearing.
You spoke to Cheadle. How'd that go?
She came to see me, actually. And, well, I mean, it went very nicely. She was very nice, I thought. But, you know, somebody should have made sure there was nobody on that roof. That roof was a dead aim right onto the stage. And they said they didn't have the manpower for it, which is crazy. 130 yards is like sinking a 1-foot putt. It's considered really close.
Absolutely right.
It sounds like a lot, but it's really, from that standpoint, it's a very, it's very close. And I was surprised by that, actually. They said it's a bad shot would usually hit the target. And so, I mean, it's got to be, somebody's got to be there. And it's essentially a flat roof. I mean, I noticed that she said, well, this is a slope roof. Well, you think of like a barn where you have this thing had just a little upswing in it, a few degrees. This was it essentially was a flat roof. So I don't know, somebody gave her false information when she talked about the slope of the roof. I thought she was very nice, but you know, you have to answer why couldn't I have stayed off the stage for 5 minutes while they do their work? Why couldn't, you know, how does a situation happen where a roof that's plainly in sight from the location where I was speaking, why would somebody not have seen that?
You were briefed, your office was briefed by Cheadle. Are you satisfied with this situation?
No.
And do you feel safe with Cheadle running the Secret Service?
Look, I think clearly she needs to be more forthcoming. She needs to actually sit before people, answer all their questions, and let people know what happened. When you try to hide information and hide from question asking, that's, I think, what leads people to believe that there's something to be hidden.
If you found the video informative, please drop a like. If you have any questions or suggestions, please type them in the comments below. If you have not yet subscribed to the Fraud News channel, please show your brother some love. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video. God bless you.